Isaiah Collier entered the year as one of the favorites to be the #1 pick, and though he still had great moments of being that guy, he hasn't quite lived up to that yet, as both he and his team have been trending in the wrong direction over the last month. He's another player with a questionable height listed at 6'5". My guess would be he's actually 6'3", but his stockier build could just make him look a little different than others. Regardless, he's put up solid numbers so far, and his ability to attack and get to the paint, make plays and passes few others can, all with NBA level size and physicality, is something that'll keep him in conversations towards the top of the draft for the time being. Now, like we mentioned, Collier has remained a serious downhill threat and someone that is difficult to stop if you allow him to get a step. He's quick and physical as a driver, with almost nobody in college basketball able to throw him off his driving lane, and as a finisher, he's completely dislodged bigs, wings, and similar sized guards at the bucket. He's consistently forced teams to bring help and scheme towards what he's doing, and in the process of all this, he's gotten to the line at a pretty high rate, getting there about 5 times a game and with a free throw rate at about 50. And in the pick and roll, he's been solid doing a lot of those same things, rejecting screens, splitting hedges, and just being able to turn a corner to get downhill. Now, this hasn't come without some rough patches in his half-court offense as a whole, handling some of the more aggressive coverages and at least questioning some of his finishing as a below-the-rim guy, though the splits have been pretty good. But the overall point remains, and that is he's capable of getting to the rim, unlike many others in this class.
For USC on the floor, Morgan with 3 sitting. Cooley has 3 for Brown, and there's a drive and a finish.
It needs to come from guys like Collier getting in the lane and being involved in pick and roll, and guys being able to finish at the rim.
Collier to the rim. That's been well documented. Out, and you've had more than a few. Great play. Collier hanging tough.
Now, he's still been at his best in transition and is currently the spot that he's at his most efficient, averaging about 1.2 points per possession. When he can get a full head of steam in space, he's extremely difficult to stop and consistently comes up with good looks both for himself and his teammates. And when he decides to turn it on, he can be an absolute blur with the ball in his hands.
Isaiah Collier, a strong take. Grab that rebound. Collier pushing his way.
Can I?
Yes.
I'm sorry. So tell me what you think about the whole Draymond Green situation.
Well, listen. And now a chance to get it to 10. And as Collier gets in,
you got to shoot it with the same rhythm you shoot it as the guy's closing out.
Collier.
Collier's most impactful attribute remains his playmaking, and he's routinely made high-level passes and plays off the dribble that very few others can. He's used his ability to get downhill into the paint well and made some elite kickouts to the corner and into the window or slot. And it's clear he's very comfortable playing off that baseline and making that read both in and out of the pick and roll, and that may be where he's at his best right now outside of the open floor. He's had a handful of good dump-offs and reads to help defense to his bigs on the interior. Now, he can still get a lot better here as an interior passer, but his bigs have also played a part in some of that not going perfectly. And if there were somewhere that tracked potential assists in college basketball, I'm positive he'd be very high on that list, just given the good looks he's created that haven't been converted.
Yeah, Tingle also telling us too, that's another reason why he wants to build up this young group, because he believes they can be a threat in that conference.
Rodman scrapping for the board. Iwuchukwu has the finish.
Him, his ability to connect with guys, motivate them.
Here's Collier. Gonna back his way down. Out of the double team. Beautiful feed to DJ.
Oregon State team doesn't shoot the 3-ball particularly well at 31%. Nice feed from.
Looks out of the timer. Isaiah Collier finds DJ Rodman. Free. Morgan, quick touch.
Of course, as dynamic as he is in the open floor, it's led to a lot of opportunities there too. Now, I would like to see him push it ahead with the pass a little more, as we saw it at times in the past, but for the most part, he's gotten what's available. We'll get to the turnovers and some thoughts on his pace on the other side of the break, because that's been the most obvious drawback to his upside here, along with needing to be a more well-rounded scoring threat. But he's still a high-level playmaker and makes the type of passes you most commonly see in the NBA.
Runs the floor.
Target from Ames. Collier from his right hip. That was Amar Knox, the redshirt freshman from Memphis, and more good.
Now, like we mentioned, one of his biggest issues so far have been in his turnovers, as he's currently averaging nearly 4 a game with a turnover percentage in the mid to high 20s, and they've happened in a variety of ways. Now, going forward, he's going to need to limit the ones losing the ball off the dribble or just getting a little out of control with the handle. He can be a lot more accurate and precise against pressure, and especially on the interior, avoiding forcing passes that aren't there, and just being an overall better decision maker and learning to avoid some of the offensive fouls too. Now, in his last 8 games, he's at just 2.5 turnovers per. He had 0 against Cal and threw in 7 assists, so it's not like he hasn't made some progress throughout the season. And again, the bigs do deserve a decent share of the responsibilities for some of these, but that's also part of the game you got to account for as a lead guard. Big picture, hopefully the pace and decision making continues to move in the right direction, and if it does, I think we see it show up in the win-loss column of some of these games. Collier got off to a fairly hot start from 3, shooting 42% in his first 7 games, and that was part of the reason some who were skeptical on him coming in were a little more convinced. But since then, it's been rough, as he's shooting just 17% from deep, and on top of that, just 51% from the free throw line in the same span. Now, I don't need to stay on this too long. We all know the importance of being a better 3-point shooter, and for Collier, providing value off the ball is going to be key, especially given the creator talent in the league right now and just how hard it is to get those opportunities. But it's also a big piece to opening up his game as a scorer overall, both from 3 in the mid-range and also in the pick and roll. Teams know he wants to get to the rim, and even with him scheming for that, whether it's giving him cushion to beat him to spots, going under, hedging to change direction, whatever it is, he's too often taking wild attempts in close instead of taking what the defense is giving him in the pull-up or getting to the floater. And outside of the pick and roll, he's got to better use that downhill ability to get to counters like the pullback, step backs, and spins, and play with a little more pace and nuance in close. Now, this has shown in small doses, but we talked about this in preseason too. I don't know if we're seeing a lot of it this year. I think limiting turnovers and improving pace is number 1, and then hitting open threes is number 2 on his list, but it is something we'll eventually need more of.
His game. Joshua Morton is not a back to the basket scorer.
Oh, what a triple home. Collier hoists a 3. Well to shoot. High screen from Morgan. The freshman picking his way to the step back game.
And the last thing that'll be keyed in on is his defense. It was questionable coming into the year, and even though he hasn't been good so far, I honestly don't think it's gotten any worse or is awful, but he's going to need to be a lot more consistent and engaged and show that he can at least provide some eventual value on this end in the NBA. Cutting out the avoidable lapses and unnecessary fouls, and then the screen navigation is still a point of emphasis. He just might not be flexible enough to do that at a high level, we'll see, but he's going to need to stick in plays and defend from behind more than he has. He's shown he's at least capable of being solid when he's locked in, but again, we're going to need to see more of these moments and less of the ones I know have been showing up in their film sessions.
They're the Pacers. I know you're
Team player at the youth level. Gets it back at the wing. Ripped by Collier.
And there's nothing like it.
Offensive foul, Jackson.
Buttons in a certain moment.
Off the pump.
Well, these guards are battling, aren't they?
They are.
there to protect the lane.
Oh, this is an easy pick.
Right now, every matchup is important for this team. They got off to a good start against Cal, nearly breaking a program record for assists and getting that W, but they're still in danger of being one of those talented teams that can't quite figure it out, so they'll look to get right as soon as possible. I like the matchup with Colorado and their 3 NBA caliber prospects, so hopefully they're healthy for those. Arizona is a very good team, and Kylan Boswell is one I have circled for Collier specifically. And then if I'm him, I need to get my get back against Jackson Shellstad in Oregon, so that'll be another one. Other than that, it's just taking it one game at a time and focusing on some of those areas we talked about. He has become tougher to project, and at the moment he's definitely falling out of my top 3 to 5 group. I still think he's a worthy pick in the top 10ish range because I do think he picks up his play, but we will start to have an even more difficult conversation if he continues to go in the direction he did in December. And on top of that, history just hasn't been kind to players with a BPM as low as his is right now. But if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new, and comment down below some of your thoughts on Isaiah Collier's play so far and where you see him going in the draft this June. As always, I'm Keandre, this is HoopIntellect. Until next time, I'm out.